Hello beautiful people and welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is JC and today we're going to talk about why we are wrong about the world according to Factfulness by Hans, Ola and Anna Rosling. This book is written from the perspective of Hans, who is a global health professor, on what he calls to be his very last battle in his lifelong mission to fight devastating global ignorance. Factfulness has 342 pages, but there's only 256 pages of actual content. The rest is reserved for the outro, the acknowledgements, the resources, and all that kind of stuff. Before we start, you have to know that this book is fantastically well written. The authors use such simple language that anybody can understand it, and also it makes it quite easy to read and very enjoyable. Now let's get into it. This book is divided into 11 chapters, the first 10 being what Hans calls to be instincts. These instincts represent ways that we think about the world. For example, chapter number 1 is called the gap instinct. The gap instinct is how we think that the world is divided into two, like developing countries and developed countries, the West and the rest, us versus them. And that there is a gap in between these two groups, right? We've all heard this before, but we are wrong. Just so you know, the authors used actual data recollected by the United Nations to prove all of their points. So they don't use opinions, they actually use hard evidence. So we were talking about the gap instinct. Throughout the book, Hans uses also personal experiences to demonstrate his points. In this chapter, he tells a story about how one day he was given a class to his students. The class was about child mortality in low-income countries. During the lecture, one of the students told Hans, "They can never live like us." Hans got thrilled with this question and asked him, "Who's they?" To which the student replied, "Non-Western countries." So Hans asked him once again, "Is Japan one of them?" To which the student replied, "No, they have a Western lifestyle." Okay, so is Mexico West? Another student decided to come into the conversation at this point and told him, "No, what they mean is that we, the West, have less children and also less of our kids die, while them, the rest, have more children, but their child mortality rate is higher." So now, using graphs from the book, we can see that the second student was right. In developing countries, they have more kids and the survival rate is lower, while in developed countries, they have less kids and the survival rate of them is higher. Just so you know, each circle represents a country. The bigger the circle means the bigger the population. So we know that the two biggest circles are China and India because they are the two most populated countries in the world. But what they didn't know is that this graph was from 1965. If we use data from 2017, we can see that there is no West versus the rest. Most of the countries are now in the top right corner of the graph, which means that countries are having less kids and less of them are dying. So as you can see, the world is not divided into two anymore. There is no gap in between developed and developing countries in most of the graphs. And that is what Hans calls the gap instinct. At the beginning of the book, Hans explains how he normally asks 13 questions about the current state of the world to all of his audiences. What is surprising is that in almost every question, less than 30% of the people get them right. And even more surprising is that in his 20 years of giving lectures, nobody has ever gotten the 13 questions right. To this, he says that if a chimpanzee had to choose one answer at random, every single question is multiple answer with 3 options, he would have a 33% probability of getting it right. So how is it that we're scoring worse than a chimpanzee? I do recommend that you Google these questions and try to answer them for yourself. I actually thought that I would do quite well, but to my surprise, I only got 6 of the 13 questions right. So if it was a test, I would have failed. I'm going to give you an example of one of the questions. In all low-income countries across the world today, how many girls finish primary school? A, 20%, B, 40%, or C, 60%. So if you're like me, you probably answered 40%, to which, once again, we are wrong. What Hans tries to teach us with these questions is that the world is better than what we think it is. But you might say to yourself, but I've heard that we're doing pretty bad. And that is linked to chapter number 2, the negativity instinct. What happens is that we are served bad news on a daily basis. For several reasons. Number one is that they sell better than good news, and two, bad news happen faster. What I mean by this is that good things normally happen gradually, like advances in medicine, while the destruction of a city might happen in just a matter of minutes. So for this and more reasons is that we are served more bad news than good news, and we developed a negativity instinct about the world. The authors use a fantastic example of how the world is like a baby in an incubator. Yes, we were dying, but now, slowly but surely, our vital signs are starting to stabilize. We are doing badly, but that doesn't mean that we're not doing good as well. In the 1800s, 44% of children died before the age of 5. Now, that number is down to only 4%. In 1975, the child with cancer survival rate was only 58%. And as of 2010, it's now 80%. The whole point of this book is that we still have a long way to go, but we are doing better now than ever before. So this was a quick overview of the book Factfulness, which is now one of my top 10 favorite books that I've ever read. The content is phenomenal. The combination of stories, examples, and principles or instincts is amazing. There's no other way to describe this book. I think that it's perfect. At the end of the book, you will be a more knowledgeable person than you were before. It teaches you to see the world how it actually is instead of how people think that it is. I can't recommend this book enough. The authors did a perfect job with it. And please, you should do yourself a favor and read it. Not because I say so, but because Bill Gates says so. To be honest, I wanted to talk more about this book, but I don't want to spoil it for you. I really do think that this is something you should read for yourself. And that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you have any feedback or book recommendations, leave them down below in the comment section. You would do me a huge favor since I'm just starting out. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember to always keep on growing.